All right, so if Linaro was a human child, what sort of behaviours would we expect? We would expect you could focus on one thing without being reminded about it. I think we do that, yeah? Yeah, right. We should share and discuss complex ideas. Well, I've seen enough of that. I mean, there's 300 odd sessions this week, and I think I've been to most of them. And we can follow instructions that have a lot of steps to them. So I think Linaro is doing pretty well for a 7-year-old. Right, could I ask the panel to come up, please? You're all over there. John, Bill, Elsie, and Thomas. You can ask questions of the panel. Leave it, John, leave it.
You want us in a sequence?
No, I don't mind. Oh, it's a jacket off kind of thing. Okay, as you settle down, why don't we start with you, Thomas? Just a quick introduction from each of you, please. I think everybody knows everybody here, but, you know, it's always nice to hear.
Good morning, everyone. My voice is a bit today. It was a fun night last night. Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Linaro in general. I'm Thomas Molgaard. I'm from ARM. I am the Director of Technology Management in the open source software part of ARM, and I've been attending Linaro Connects for the better part of 4.5, 5 years, something like that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bill Mills with Texas Instruments. I do Linux strategy for TI. And I'm the TSC rep from TI, and I've been with Linaro 5.5 or something like that.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Elsie Wallig, and I'm with Qualcomm Data Centers. I'm in the product management group and responsible for software ecosystem. And I've been coming to Linaro Connect now for a good 5 years now, solid.
All right, that, for 2 companies.
John Masters, Chief ARM Architect at Red Hat. I've been working on Linux for 22 years now. And I'm a newcomer, and I've been coming to Connect for the last 5 years.
Yeah, so John started on open source as an embryo, so. All right, first question, I'm going to bowl underarm. What has changed in the last 7 years for open source, around open source? So Linaro's been around 7 years. What's changed about open source? Who'd like to go first? I think Thomas should go first. Oh, no, Bill.
I'm trying to remember. I think 7 years ago, a lot of the semiconductor companies were paying lip service to open source, but did not really have it ingrained in their, all throughout the organization. I think that has changed. Yeah, it comes and goes in waves, but I think we've gotten a lot better.
Okay, anyone else? If no one else speaks, you realize John speaks.
I've always got an opinion. I've got two thoughts on that. I think in the broader community, I think being a maker was a thing more than 7 years ago, but it's really become a very different thing in the past 7 years. You look at where 96 Boards has taken things recently in the ARM space, but just more broadly with some of the broader communities getting easy access to platforms and being able to build very exciting things. That's particularly interesting to me.
Okay. Thomas?
I would say that open source, and specifically the ARM architecture and the Linux kernel, has gotten a lot cleaner. It's certainly improved and benefit from all of Linaro coming together and contributing to make it better and make it clean.
Cool.
And I think well, I'd like to echo what the other panel members have said. I think from an ARM perspective, the conversation's changed quite a lot. I think we've been on a really interesting journey from enablement and maintenance towards leadership in certain areas as well. And Linaro is certainly part of the collaboration platform where all of that happens. So this has been really exciting to see.
Okay. Good. Next question. Linaro has been around 7 years, but despite the fact we've been around 7 years, is there anything that just we failed to change or has failed to change? What have we not managed to change? I think I've stumped them. Come on. Otherwise, it's John.
I've got an opinion.
Oh, really? Go on. Thank God for that.
You always know if you invite me, I'll say something, right?
That's why you're there.
I'd like to run for office because, no. Just wait for that. That's my post-Linux career. I think the one thing that this is a lighter answer, right? Despite our best efforts here, there's a lot of people here who get it. There are still many people out there, increasingly fewer, but there are still many people who ship board support packages, and we've got a little bit more broader education to do beyond the wonderful set of folks we have here. It's not many people, but there's still people out there, and I think in server, for example, we've made it, that's like my favorite word, boring, right? But we've still got other areas, whether it's IoT or other emerging markets, where the same story is going to play out, and we need to follow the standard path, upstream open source solutions that are better than having, kind of hacked up per device stories.
Okay. Anyone else brave enough?
Doesn't bite.
Okay. Let's go on. I'll ask something less contentious. Well, I don't think that was contentious. In the early days, going back more than 7 years, it used to be Android versus Linux, and there was quite a lot of antipathy between the two, which I kind of understood that that was because people making money out of open source software was kind of a strange concept and not allowable. But how are things these days between Android and Linux, do you think?
So I argued from the beginning that Android and Linux were two operating systems that shared a kernel. And I still believe that. I think there's a lot of cooperation, but I don't really think it's any more significant than saying Linux for servers or Linux for embedded systems. I think those are just as different. So it's just part of the diversity of our ecosystem.
Yeah. Okay. No? Anyone else? No? Any questions from the audience at this point? You're all asleep. Do you need coffee? Yes. Okay.
Come on, don't be shy. Come on.
Well, no, I'll just keep asking questions then. Okay, we've been doing Connect 7 years. It's changed a bit. It's got bigger. We haven't got dry ice and rock music, but we're getting there. What do you miss about the original ones? It's not University Challenge, you know.
They were smaller,
Yeah.
and we had 3 or 4 of them here.
Yeah, smaller and more of them. Okay. Anyone
Actually,
else?
being able to attend sessions.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff going on, you can't hit it all, right? And so it takes a lot. After Connect, I spend a lot of time watching videos and slides and things. So.
Right. Come on, Thomas, wake up.
Yeah, exactly. Probably echoing what Bill is saying. I tend to spend most of my time in committee meetings these days, and actually, some of the things one of the things that I look forward to the most is what we're doing later today. So Demo Friday. I think actually that's a great thing that's happened since the early connects that I was a part of. But yeah, just the ability to see everything that's going on and attending actual sessions would be great.
Okay, thanks. Well, we got a question from Mad Dog at the front.
So there is a large company in Redmond, Washington that says that they love open source. If that company was to say that they wanted to join Linaro as a member, how might you suggest that they change their attitudes to change their love from perhaps Eros into agape?
Ooh.
Fell 'em 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 Do you want me to grab that grenade?
Yeah, throw yourself on the grenade, John.
So I love my friends at Microsoft. I'm going to say nice things about them. It's been very interesting the past few years being a Red Hatter. We have these conversations all the time about how the industry is changing. 7 years ago, if you talked about some of these other more traditional companies, people had very different reactions in the community from what they do today. Some of us follow, Twitter, esteemed colleagues in the industry like Jesse Frizzell and others who tweet about moving to Microsoft and discovering that they're actually doing very cool Linuxy stuff. And it's very interesting to see that because years ago you wouldn't have gotten that. So I think if they were to join Linaro or if they were to get more involved, I think at this point we would all welcome that and we would all look forward to working with companies like them, and they would not be outsiders in this community anymore. It's very different now than it was.
Anyone else? Bill?
Well, since I've been doing this, I've expected Microsoft to get more and more open, and it's happening. But yeah, I think it would be great. If there was one thing that I would like to see, would be the unlocking of ARM-based Windows devices, so that if the technology is really the best technology should win, and making ARM not have an artificial barrier to an open platform. x86 is an open platform. ARM should be an open platform as well.
Yeah, good answers. Any more? No? Okay. There was a question from the back.
So you talk a lot about everything that Linaro has accomplished. It's always great to hear about that. But do you have any regrets or any things you wish you could have fixed that Linaro didn't actually accomplish?
FD pick in GCC. Next, guys.
Someone? Anyone?
Well, what John said before. So it's not only, the whole upstream solution on the kernel. It's not just what John said. There's recognition that getting upstream is important, but with all the effort that we do try to put in, we still find it hard to get what we need upstream in enough time for commercial time frames and things like that. I don't expect this to actually get solved, but we've made progress. I'd like to see more progress.
All right, I've got an opinion. Okay, so the thing I've learned, this is kind of connected to what the last 7 years have taught me. They've taught me that the Linux and open source space, or they've reminded me that it's very much about technology, but it's also, in a good way, it's a very political thing. Everyone has an opinion, everybody gets involved, everybody expresses themselves, and it is a meritocracy. And those of us who are living in the enterprise space, for example, we work with a lot of companies that in the fellow members of the industry who have had to understand that we all want to work together to standardize things, to build these great technologies, but you can't do it by edict. I know that. I play this character, some people see, of ranting about standards, because it's kind of self-deprecating and ironically funny, I think. But there's a lot of companies we work with who, literally think that you can do it by edict. And we all know, and we've been reminded, that you actually can't do that. So Linaro has been very helpful. I do wish that somehow we had a time machine and we could go back and more fully maybe redo some of the early discussions there and get things solved a bit faster. But we've come to the right outcomes in most cases, I think.
Okay. Any more for that?
So for us, Linaro is where we collaborate on open source. It's where we come together with with all of the members of our partnership, a lot of the members of our partnership, and it's where we scale. And what we would like to see more of is just even more collaboration and more open conversations. Linaro is set up to drive those conversations, and it's a very good scale, or a very good place for all of us to come together and actually do more, faster and better.
Okay. If I might, I'd like to add to that. I'm very impatient, so I find things don't happen fast enough. I always imagine it'll take a year or two. But what I've learned from getting older and also from Mad Dog is that over time, open source always wins. There's some little perturbations in the stream, but over time, it always wins. So you have to be patient and just keep going. Anyway, there's a question over there.
Yeah, so it seems like ARM has either dominated or started to penetrate just about every segment. Like with servers now, there's some penetration in mobile dominance and automotive, but desktop seems like the only thing that's... So the introduction of the developer box the other day I thought was really cool, and I'm excited about getting one. What do you guys think it's going to take for ARM to finally make inroads there? Is it Linux on the desktop, or is it Microsoft and ARM doing something cool, or when is that going to change?
Can we start with anybody but John?
Anyone else? Come on. Phil, go first.
I love desktops. I couldn't live without one. I think we're the minority, right? So it's a shrinking market. It's going more towards end devices and servers. So I'm an old guy, right? But I think that way, but I'm not sure this problem is big enough that it needs a solution. That is intentionally provocative.
I'm working on being an old guy.
We're all
In
working
my
on being
day,
an
we
old
did
guy.
it this way, you know. The developer, any progress is good progress, right? I think if you want to draw a historical comparison to another popular architecture company that is down the street from here, it's a microarchitecture conversation, actually. Their microarchitecture cadence is such that you will see, that's microarchitecture appear in a client device and then appear in a server. And that may change over time, but the benefit, the natural benefit they have that we're coming up against is that you're able as a developer to run code on a representative microarchitecture on your desktop or on your workstation. So I think if we're going to truly over time, I think the workstation market is very small and shrinking. I think it's a very tough sell for one of the ARM server vendors to go and do that. But I think to truly solve that problem, you've got to give those workstation users or desktop users a representative microarchitecture, which is one of the big server ones and is not a client part. And that's a huge challenge. And so I think we solve it through a combination of these developer systems. That's good progress. I think we also solve it through creative access to hardware, which could be making it very easy to use packet servers or something like this. Hit a button, get a box. Most developers are not like us. I talk to people all the time who don't know what a computer architecture is. And that's okay. That's not a disparaging statement. That is the world we live in. People write Python code. They don't write C code or assembly code anymore. And so what we have to focus on as a broader community, other than, say, the kernel community, is making access to hardware something that developers can take for granted. Do your work on your x86 laptop? Not a problem, really, right? Deploy that container onto an ARM server and have it just work. So I'm more interested in things like Docker just working and some of the multi-arch manifest stuff than I am in giving every developer out there, beyond a small group of us, ARM boxes on their desks.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else?
Can I take a second go? No, I'm going to rebut myself. So
That's a committee member for you. 2 points of view right there.
So I'm not sure this is an interesting enough problem for a company to solve. But John mentioned, that the maker environment is so, it's actually now getting to what we always thought should be happening, is that people create really interesting technology without huge companies behind it. And this is a small problem, but it's certainly a problem that could be addressed there. And the example that's today is kind of an example of that.
Okay, good. Come on, Elsie.
So I would say that the need to have a workstation, that fits a specific class. The need to have a laptop, that fits a specific class. And what kind of chip is in there is becoming incredibly more irrelevant to the types of software that we want to build. What I observed yesterday was there was a need to build a demo on the spot. And one of the guys from Packet got access to a system back in their network, and they were able to do that really fast. That's the kind of paradigms that's changing the way we're using systems today, which don't require us to go to Fry's or whatever's your local tech retailer or best way to get hardware and go get some hardware. You're able to go find the hardware and to have the scale of the system that you want more at your desktops electronically through whatever kind of interface or device you want to go find.
So I think because of the nature of how we do, or how compute happens is changing, sort of to John's point as well, that it might just, I mean, we are using different devices for different things right now. I was at a developer conference last year, and there was a representative from a Chinese developer community that was talking about that they were now doing code reviews on using WeChat. And accelerating sort of the way that they were developing code, actually. So suddenly you're not tied to your workstation or your laptop. You're actually making things happen by using the devices that we all carry around in our pockets. So it's quite interesting the way that we are using, or the way that compute happens for us now.
Yeah, okay. No, I think the nature of computing has changed, but I really want to replace that last Intel in my house. Anyway, Mad Dog, you've got a question?
No, actually a couple comments on this topic.
Oh, okay.
Okay. First of all, you have to understand that when we talk about desktops and laptops and tablets, we're really talking about approximately 2 billion, 500 million devices. And there's 7.6 billion people in the world. We saw a slide the other day of the number of cell phones that people have, as opposed to the number of laptops and things like that. What you've been describing is what we used to call workstations. And many years ago, I used to ask people, what is the difference between a VAX or Alpha workstation and an Intel PC? And they brought up all these technical reasons why they were different. And I said, well, you know, those are rapidly changing. And so after a while, what is a workstation versus a PC? And I think these days, the question is, what is the difference? So I'm working right now with an organization that has a very, very simple Linux desktop. It looks almost like an Android desktop, where you just touch the little icons on the screen, they launch them for you. You know, you don't have to know about file systems and things like that. And I think, you know, and other things I've seen are where people are taking phones and simply adding the interface so you can hook them up to your 4K TV and have your large screen and your Bluetooth keyboard and things like that. So the question is the desktop relevant, or is the desktop, when we say is the desktop going to be Linux, or is it going to be Android? And what difference does it make as long as it's open? That's the big thing, right? Okay. I don't care what the operating system is, as long as people can do what they need to with it. Okay. That's it.
Very wise point. Okay, we've got time for one more question or coffee. Oh, somewhere in the middle. Shh, stop it. It's right here. You'll get detention again, and you don't like it.
I think there's been quite a few amazing, incredible things announced at Connect, but something that's very big that I don't want to notice is us being open to the associate program and bringing different members in at that level. I'm wondering, it's not about Linaro making money here. What it's about is building the ecosystem, and I'm wondering, where do we start? What types of companies, organizations would really feed Linaro the best at the associate level? doesn't have to be an individual company, but what types?
Okay.
Can I answer your question by answering a completely different question?
A real committee member.
I think this is one of the things I'm most excited about in Linaro is getting new people involved in Linaro, getting a broader scope. The associate program is one of those things, but I'm also very excited about getting Linaro being the host of some open source projects that are not necessarily tightly connected with Linaro. I think that's a really great, both of those things are very exciting. I'll let John answer the specific question on the associate.
Do you want me to? All right. Well, I'll give you an opinion because I'm not shy of opinions. In terms of, I'm speaking from an enterprise group perspective mostly here. I won't use specific names, but I think if you look at when we formed the enterprise group, we had a number of core members who had a common set of problems we wanted to solve, and we were willing to invest dollars to help bring standardization and bring some of the things we wanted to see to the enterprise space. I think as we go into other areas, whether it's HPC, big data, many of the different groups we have, special interest groups we have, and lead projects we have inside LEG, we are focused on technologies where it may not make sense to have somebody pay to join Linaro or get involved in that kind of traditional sense, because they really want to get involved for the goodness of helping the community and the ecosystem. And frankly, they already have, if it's an adapter card company, say it's a interconnect company in HPC, right? It may not make sense to have them join in the traditional sense, but we want to work with them. And so having a framework that makes it easier to work with other companies and get them involved only serves to strengthen what we're doing here. And actually, it brings tremendous value. As a member, it's very easy for me to sell the associate program concept to my organization, because I'm saying this doesn't detract from the value of our membership. In fact, it augments the value of our membership, because Linaro is not a silo where things happen off to one side. Linaro is an organization that tries to advance the ARM cause whilst working well with everybody else. Okay. Anyone want to add anything else to that?
So I see that sort of the problem space that we're looking at in areas such as automotive is such a vast one. If you just look at the area of functional safety, that having additional players come in and actually collaborate with us, players that would normally not be able to be part of Linaro, I think that's something that's going to help us solve some of these really big problems and address some of the really big challenges we have. So from an ARM perspective, we're really excited about the associates part.
Okay, right. So I'm going to bring it to a close now, because I need a coffee. No, you all need a coffee. We all need coffee. But I'd like to thank the panel, because it's not only Friday morning, it's the end of a very, very tiring week. And they've had to appear reasonably smart, dressed, with the buttons done up in the right order, and sound sensible. So, and all you've had to do is come in, which I'm glad you did. But the next thing I want you to do is give them a big round of applause. Thank you. All right. Okay, coffee.